There are vacancies for skilled and unskilled workers. Join the men in mining, now.
Where am I?
The Girl Who Was Deaf, Not Deaf, was first broadcast in January 1968. It was written by Terence Feely with direction and original idea by David Tomlin. The script was adapted from an unused Danger Man show, and with its slightly jocular presentation resembles many of the James Bond films, including car chases and the use of a broom to trap the hero inside a tub, as seen in Thunderball. Its actual production was the penultimate show, although when Channel 4 rerun the series, they placed it at number 14 in the running order. Patrick was recalled to LA to tidy up some scenes from Ice Station Zebra, leaving the prisoner crew to work around his absence. Due to number 2 and his cohort simply watching number 6 read out a bedtime story, this episode could be placed much earlier in the series, perhaps even after arrival. And that's not something I've thought about before, but this storybook inside an allegory shows no insidious or pernicious behaviour towards number 6, other than listening in to see if he's dropped any personal information regarding his life outside of the village. After subjecting 6 to numerous physical beatings, then psychological and drug-fueled experiments, why would the village master think loose lips over a bedtime story would see 6 giving information away? At the time, Patrick McGowan stated, the audience should never know what's coming next. The more you confuse them, the more you make them think. This episode stands out as the most playful and experimental piece within the entire series. Its tone, genre and structure are so drastically different from the more traditionally tense episodes.
David said, look, we want to get out of the village. Bit boring to have every episode in the village. Let's do an episode where we get out of the village.
It invites deeper questions about the nature of control, freedom, and identity in ways that feel more meta than even McGowan himself intended. McGowan, who often favoured darker, more sombre themes, seems to have relished the opportunity to inject humour and absurdity into the plot, perhaps as a critique of the very genre he was working within. Indeed, both he and Tomlin were delighted with Feely's script, and bizarrely wanted it to be 2 hours in length. Lou Grade apparently told them, "Do you think I'm made of money?"
And David and Pat flew down and said, listen, this is so marvellous, can't you make it into a 2-hour? We'd like to do this as a 2-hour, you know. But the script was done, and it was marvellous. It would have been a wonderful 2 hours. But even I must confess, I don't quite see where it would have fitted in to a series of 1 hour episodes.
Presented as a storybook narrative, the episode transcends its whimsical, almost parodic surface to probe deeper themes of control, identity, resistance, and the manipulation of reality itself. Its allegorical richness invites interpretations as both a critique of societal structures and a meditation on the human condition, particularly within the claustrophobic microcosm of the village. The Girl Who Was Deaf could easily be seen as an allegory for the seduction of death through power, control, and love, recurring motifs throughout The Prisoner. But the real allegory here may be less direct, but no less potent. It comments on the societal urge to normalize the abnormal, to impose meanings on the meaningless, and to maintain order in a world increasingly resistant to being ordered. Although the Girl of Death is an agent of chaos, yes, she also represents the allure of the seductive, dangerous freedom that comes with embracing disorder. The choice of making the girl's father a comedical Napoleon leans heavily into the absurdity of bureaucratic authority, the nature of which that it's both laughable and terrifying. By twisting these elements into a somewhat comedical framework, Feely and McGowan call attention to the dangers of taking ourselves too seriously in our social roles. And incidentally, number 2 was originally going to be Hitler, but as World War II was only 21 years prior, it was felt portraying old Adolf would be too much for viewers. One of the most powerful and deep theories behind this labyrinthine series are its parallels to Buddhism and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The village could symbolize the moment of death or the state of encountering karmic illusions. In both Dance of the Dead and Fallout's carnivalesque atmosphere, with its costumes and ritualistic trial, mirrors the vivid hallucinatory visions described in the Bardo for Doll, where the deceased face projections of their own mind. For Buddhists, this suggests number 6 is grappling with samsaric illusions, striving for liberation from cyclic existence. For intellectual viewers, it frames the village as a metaphor for the postmodern condition, a panopticon of control where identity is tested against external narratives. Number 6 is told twice in the series that he's already dead.
They don't know you're already dead. Locked up in the long box.
I'll die. You're dead.
The room in Once Upon a Time is called the embryo room, with possibilities of being reborn to suffering. It's also interesting to see the blinding white light throughout the episode. Number 6's defiance reflects the practice of prajna, to discern the non-self, anatta, nature of phenomena. And each episode with its Kafkaesque trials, whether psychological torture in A, B and C, or identity erasure in the Schizoid Man, parallels the Bardo's confrontations with fear-inducing deities or karmic apparitions, urging number 6 to awaken to his true nature.
Somebody who belongs to my world.
This is your world. If you insist on living a dream, you may be taken for mad.
I like my dream.
Then you are mad.
Walter Wentz, Western translator of the Book of the Dead, quoted, "Each universe, like a great cosmic egg, is enclosed within an iron-walled shell, which shuts in the light of the sun and moon and stars. The iron-walled shell being symbolical of the perpetual darkness separating one universe from another. Our hero, number 6, has his past life shown before him, where he's stripped of his past identity and possessions. Number 6 refuses to desire the egg that will facilitate rebirth. He faces the wrathful deities generated by one's own psyche. When attached to his illusory existence, he is corrected by his teachers, the ones we temporarily despise in our ignorance, being our greatest teachers.
I'll be dead.
A small confirmation of a known fact.
The final episode being the Grand Trial, where 6's actions over his consciousness's lives are judged by number 1, the self being either one's only real saviour or oppressor. His past karma allows his consciousness to progress to a higher rebirth, but not to nirvana. We can't surmise his use of violence or ignorance, the stumbling block to reaching the bliss-like state of nirvana, transcending this entropic universe. He's then thrust back into the samsaric existence, of which we should all strive to exit. So perhaps number 6, through his good karma, attains a higher level of existence, a demigod, still subject to lesser suffering. It was created, after all, in the swinging psychedelic 60s, where Buddhism and transcendental meditation had become a fascination for many Western creative thinkers. How deep do you want to go? After being taken through the iconic intro to The Prisoner, our first scene shows a children's picture book being opened, the inside pages depicting people from all over the world, possibly a reference to the globalist dream of the village's creators. The page is turned and we see the charming setting of a cricket match in a picturesque village. If you look closely, number 6 actually turns over many pages, suggesting we're jumping straight into a plot that's already begun. We see a cricket match in action with a receptive crowd, and the character of Potter, as played by Christopher Benjamin, minding the scoreboard.
I think if you watch it that I'm not the same Potter. Came back into the prisoner. I don't hold with that at all. Nobody told me.
Potter's bag has the usual SLR rifle hidden away, and he's using the binos for a quick recce. His eyes latch onto the seductive and sinister lady in white. Benjamin played alongside McGowan in Danger Man and was asked to play a different Potter in Arrival at the Labour Exchange. The girl was played by Justine Lord, who had previously appeared in The Avengers, The Saint, and went on to perform in Man in a Suitcase, Crossroads, The Doctors, and The Young Ones as the White Witch.
Have some Turkish delights. Spotted.
It's not me!
And here she is at a prisoner convention, playfully wearing all white. In the episode, she was left to create her own costumes and did a sterling job. She's both beguiling and lethal, an embodiment of the seductive power of chaos. With a beauty and enigmatic charm, she draws the agent in, but as the title suggests, there's death in her wake. The cricket match, by the way, was shot at Meepen Green. A pub called the Cricketers Inn is visible in the background, and it's still there today. In other shots and for close-up, some other pictures were used, along with some interiors for McGowan. Potter and Colonel Hawke at the crease obviously worked together, but after the ball is switched, we see the hidden bomb bowled, and it's not a case of rain stop play, more like rain in bits and pieces. It's here we see McGowan's character literally looking down on Potter as he's given a briefing on Madman Dr. Schnips, his deadly rocket, and where to pick up his next clue. As our agent walks off, we can pick up that this mysterious girl will be watching his every move. The fictitious Magnum record shop was situated at 187 Shenley Road, Boreham Wood, and was up to date a Bernardo's. Inside the record shop, people of a certain age will recognise the booths where you could play a new disc and decide if you wanted to buy it. And in the top corner, you can see the Beatles album Help, starring Leo McKern. Our agent picks up his orders and he's to take up where the Colonel met his end. With the benefit of prior events, Six manages to catch the ball and throw it back to where it was swapped. His new clue suggests he meets a contact at the pub, always a good place to meet. As our agent pulls up to the pub, we can see the Lotus Elan, a standard S3 made to look like an S/E. This was more than likely the same car used in The Avengers, which makes sense. The location was the Thatch Barn, Elstree Way in Boreham Wood, and sadly, like many pubs, now gone. It was a local hangout for the actors, so if you were lucky, you could have bumped into Patrick Macnee, Stanley Kubrick, or even Basil Brush. Quite fittingly, it was also requisitioned by the SOE in World War II as a training centre. For the keen-eyed viewer, the backdrop through the windows is actually Stag Place in London, a location shown in other episodes. Doris pulls the agent as usual, but after drinking it down, discovers the familiar village font with the words. Bloody hell, sounds like my local. After ordering enough shots to make himself throw up, the agent passes his nemesis on the way to the toilets. After throwing up, he finds his next rendezvous, Benny's Turkish baths. Just looking at this scene makes me sweat. Imagine being in one of those in full tweeds. Nightmare. The viewer by now must be able to see the James Bond parody. Shall I shoot Bond here and now, or leave him locked in a room to no doubt escape and finish me off with plenty of explosions at a later date? Moving on to the boxing ring scene, the Kersal amusement park in Southend was used, sadly shut down in '73. I think Disney World bought them out as they didn't want the competition. Those fight posters showed genuine British boxers, The boxing MC is played by Harold Behrens, who you may remember took up the role of the reporter in Free for All, and I like his line.
No kicking, butting or gouging, except in moderation when I say break, break. Don't forget, eh?
McGowan in his youth had enjoyed a little pugilistic activity, and although some publicity reports claim he was more than an amateur, these have been exaggerated somewhat. However, when he did partake in fight scenes, any actors facing him would invariably end up with a few scrapes. Various stuntmen and Stanley Baker can testify to that.
During the making of the film, my boxing didn't do me much good because both Pat and myself came out with various bruises and various loose teeth.
In the original 2-hour script, Before the Tunnel of Love, our agent was directed to a giant maze. On entry, he would have been transported to a jungle where he'd be attacked by a man and a lion. After escaping with the help of a talking parrot, I shit you not, he'd be back in the maze but then attacked by a gardener and a stilt walker brandishing a machine gun. Six then escaped by setting fire to his trousers. Was Terence Feely on LSD? After a brief punch-up, we find ourselves in the Tunnel of Love, which looks more like a ghost train, and our agent is beckoned to partake in further cat and mouse action. The cute fairground scenes echo the whimsical nature of this bedtime story, and as an observation, there's hardly one fat person in all of these cuts. We were slimmer and fitter as a nation. McGowan didn't actually attend for the fairground shots. He only appeared in front of the back screen projections.
And I went down and I saw Mr. Ken Crowley, the general manager of the Kersal, and I told him I had 2 or 3 days shooting. They were all on concessionary basis. The charabanc rides and the roundabouts, they were all covered over with tarpaulin, so they had to be all opened up and greased.
We also have some shots of Frank Mayer, McGowan's stuntman, climbing around the roller coaster, as McGowan's close-ups were shot in the studio at MGM. The photographer is an uncredited Alexis Canna, with his overdubbed voice, to me, sounding more like Eric Idle. During the somewhat psychedelic car chase, the girl drives an Olympic white E-Type Jaguar Series 1 Roadster, possibly a later 3.8. McGowan is driving a demonstration model of a Lotus Elan S3. And look at those open motorways. This scene was shot around the Mops and Broom pub near MGM Boreham Wood. And did anyone notice Doctor Who was in town? You see, we see the famous Boreham Wood back lot used throughout the Prisoner series. The Butcher Baker Candlestick Maker scenes never left my memory as a kid, and I love the ingenuity of the escapes. When I saw the 1983 repeats, I had one of those, oh yeah, I remember this. And of course the reference is from Rubber Dub Dub, 3 maids in a tub. On mine on a Thursday. The 3 names of the shops were an in-joke. Leonard Snuffit is Len Harris, David Doe is David Tomlin, and Brendan Bull is lighting cameraman Brendan J. Stafford. That's a nice bit of art in the book, as we rejoin part 2 after the adverts. When our agent is in the butcher's, dodging the lead, it always gets me that all weapons have unlimited rounds in the magazine, and traps that are encroaching on a person's body are then up and down numerous times according to the edit. After nearly snuffing himself out with the explosive candles, the agent gathers up all the wax and places it by a wall. After a quick gust of air from the bellows, the whole lot explodes and blows enough bricks out to escape the deadly maze. With no pause to breathe, the agent breaks out into machine gun fire, manned by the girl sporting a picklauber and fetching white denims. Although she is now throwing stick grenades onto the street, our agent makes good use of a digger to repel the shrapnel. However, after seeing the girl lining up a Panzerschreck, he jumps to the ground and uses the manhole cover to hide under. Touching up her makeup, the girl surveys the carnage and decides he's well and truly finished. As she runs off to the helicopter, our unseen agent follows, desperately clinging on to the skids. McGowan worried the crew members during this shot as he held on too long after the takeoff. The helicopter was a bell 47G2, and sadly, like the other chopper used for the series, it too crashed and was destroyed. After landing, the agent hides in the bushes and watches the girl walk off to a hidden cave entrance. This rock formation here is where the gypsy camp was seen in Many Happy Returns. Following the girl in a scene reminiscent of James Bond, he's led down to Beachy Head Lighthouse and through its underground caves. These caves were also used in Fallout, where they were lined with jukeboxes, and Fallout being directly after The Girl Who Was Deaf in production. In the original script, number 6 was to walk up to a control desk and see a button marked Peace, which was crossed out, and another that said War. As mentioned earlier, due to our number 2's character change, these walls would have been decorated with German World War II art and photographs of Hitler. Number 6 is startled by the sound of a guard dressed in French uniform walking down the stairs. 6 easily clobbers him when he walks back and then changes into his uniform. It's here we finally see Dr. Schnips, or number 2, played by Kenneth Griffith. Kenneth also plays the president/judge in Fallout. He'd first met McGowan whilst working on the Danger Man episode Shinda Shima, and he starred in many theatre, TV and film roles. A brief list includes Private's Progress, A Night to Remember, Wild Geese, Who Dares Wins, and 4 Weddings and a Funeral. He described himself as being a radical socialist who became a radical Tory. Speaking of McGowan, he stated, "It was an extraordinary experience because of Pat. Really, the whole thing was generated by this man who drove himself into the ground. With the whole arsenal at his disposal, our agent booby-traps some of the weaponry, whilst our Napoleon briefs his anti-London section in this rather comical scene." Scottish, Welsh and Irish accents noted. This next scene where the soldiers are fumbling about is straight from the Keystone Cops, as with a few good moves our hero is out of the lighthouse, turned rocket, and waiting for the troops to take themselves out. He knows he has to stop the rocket from being launched, so he climbs back onto the main section, only to be met with his longtime sparring partner in white, and this part of the set was also used in Fallout. The comical nature of these characters provides a sharp critique of bureaucracy, presenting it as something so mind-numbingly mechanical that it becomes absurd. Why do all-powerful figures want to make our lives worse? Well, one has to be a total narcissist to reach such positions. Add in your favourite dictator or royal, and don't forget the one you voted in for the last election.
All around you.
All around us.
The lighthouse itself is the rocket.
As Schnips and his daughter try and grab all their documents, our agent finds an unexpected way of escaping his bonds and gives the computer dials more than a rough tweak to scupper any intended target. Leapfrogging or abseiling his would-be killers, he dashes to the speedboat whilst Napoleon, Schnips and the girl anxiously throw the booby-trap grenades. Not knowing the explosives are actually in the handles. With that, kaboom, and well done to the Mogul department for a nifty little explosion. That was created in the MGM water tank using a 4-foot Mogul built by John Laguerre. John also created the rocket interior used for the next and final show, Fallout. And there we have the story ending with a picture of what looks like to me, Moby Dick, and he is. The viewer now sees it was number 6 all along, reading a bedtime story to the children of the village. If this were real life, just the thought of keeping children locked inside such a repressive and repulsive organisation is pure horror. Mind you, it beats BBC Corridors in 1973. The revelation that number 6's tale is a bedtime story for the village children introduces a profoundly disturbing dimension to the episode. The horror of raising children in a totalitarian environment designed to suppress individuality. The village, with its omnipresent surveillance, enforced conformity, and erasure of personal history, is a prison for ex-spies like number 6, but its implications for children born or raised within its confines are even more chilling. These children, unlike the adult prisoners, have no external frame of reference, no memory of a world beyond the village's pastel facades and numbered identities. Their upbringing in this hermetically sealed dystopia represents a form of existential violence, as they are denied the opportunity to develop autonomous identities or engage with the complexities of the outside world. At the time, The Girl Who Was Deaf drew mixed reactions from critics. Some saw it as a fun, breezy departure from the more serious episodes of the series, appreciating its playful tone and farcical elements. Others, however, found it jarring, criticising its lack of direct answers, and perhaps feeling betrayed by the tonal shift. The eccentric nature of the episode made it both an enigma and a comedic relief in a show that never failed to provoke, but was always veiled in mystery. For intelligent viewers, the episode invites reflection on the ethical implications of shaping young minds, the fragility of freedom in the face of systemic control, and the enduring power of stories to challenge oppressive realities.
I don't think I have any other important appointments.
The horror of the villagers' children lies not only in their captivity, but in their ignorance of it, a chilling reminder of the stakes of conformity and the cost of lost autonomy. Patrick McGowan's vision remains central to the show. I wanted to create a series that would make people think. I wanted them to question everything, from what they saw on the screen to the world they lived in. And in The Girl Who Was Deaf, we see this vision realised, albeit in a way that is hilarious and thought-provoking, leaving viewers to ponder the true nature of control and rebellion. Fearless script, with its constant shifts in tone, invites the viewer to question the stories we're told and the structures that dictate our reality. Is the spy's mission ever truly his own, or is he simply playing a part in a larger, farcical narrative?